rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. My name is Rick Thomas, and I am your host for this evening. So if my voice sounds a little different, there's a reason for it. Last night was a lot of fun, I've got to admit. And the reason why I didn't broadcast last night, for those that don't know, is that my daughter graduated from high school. I attended the graduation, and then, of course, they did what they call a grad night afterward, where we kind of quote unquote kidnap the graduates and take them on a all night bus tour to different venues and activities for them to do. So they basically stay up all night and do different activities. So for an example, just to give you a hint of what was in store for the youngsters, we had a multi-use place that had arcade games, bouncy houses, or not bouncy houses, but like trampolines, ball pits, things like that for them to go and do putt-putt golf, that kind of stuff. And then the second venue that we went to was a nightclub that had dancing, and they set up a blackjack card room for some of those. I participated in the blackjack, and that's part of the reason why my voice is so out, is because I had to compete with the dance music in order to help instruct the youngsters that did not know how to play blackjack on, teach them blackjack. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. I played security at the first venue, and then was a dealer at the second venue. And so it was a lot of fun, and it was really the even more fun part was on the way home after they had come out of the dance club. Of course, this is 5:00 this morning. They come out of the dance club, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's light out." Yeah, they all crashed. Well, I won't say all of them, but the majority of them crashed on our bus. We had 3 buses, 50 students each. So it was 150 students that went out of the roughly 250 or so that graduated out of the class last night. So yes, my voice is a little strained, not because of yelling at them, but just because of, again, trying to over talk the music at the second venue. Dealing blackjack for a couple of hours when you're not used to it is sort of sort of an interesting experience, let me just say that. But anyway, had a lot of fun. The kids had a lot of fun. There were other things that were running around there too. They had at one venue they had a henna tattoo station. They had a caricature artist. They had a hypnotist at one of them. They had a magician at the other. So it was pretty fun, for the most part overall. And, the kids didn't really, and I call them kids, they're adults now for the most part, but the kids, they pretty much behaved themselves quite well. So, there wasn't anything major. We did have a couple, people reportedly smoking weed in the bathrooms in one of the venues, but oh well. Anyway, so that's why I didn't transmit last night, and that's why my voice is the way that it is. Oh yeah, it was, believe me, Julie P80 over on Rumble says, "Wow, that sounds like a riot, especially for 18-year-olds." Yeah, we had some 17-year-olds too. So 17-year-olds that didn't graduated but hadn't turned over to 18 because their birthdays were in July. So, so it was kind of fun. for the most part. For the parents, the chaperones that went, we all did a great job, I think. And again, I think the kids enjoyed it as well. And as part of the entertainment, that grad night thing that I ended up having to redo thanks to all of the technical difficulties on Tuesday, and that was the reason why I wasn't broadcasting on Tuesday, that got redone, turned into a DVD, and dropped on the buses for them to enjoy for that. So, yeah, The Hypnotist, I got to tell you, I've never seen a hypnotism show, and I was a little floored. Because, you know, he admitted in the very beginning when he started talking about who he was going to pick and that kind of stuff, he was like, look, if you don't want to be hypnotized, if you're not willing, you can't be hypnotized, which is pretty much, I mean, it's a misnomer to say that anyone can be hypnotized. You have to, it's a want more than anything else. You would have to want to be hypnotized in order for anything to work. You've got to be willing to do it, is what he said. So it was kind of interesting. He had him do some kind of strange stuff, and you know, you had some fakers in the crowd of his subjects. You had the fakers in there, and he was quick to identify them and get them out. And then you had some that were a really big question mark as to whether or not they actually were faking it or real. And that's why those shows, I guess, are really that interesting for that. My daughter tried to participate. She wasn't one of the first ones out, but I guarantee you she was pretty quick in getting out of there. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I get the feeling that she's kind of like me. She's just not very open to suggestive manipulation in that way. But whatever. It was kind of fun just to see. Like I said, the night itself was a lot of fun. And I think the kids enjoyed themselves and gave them some good memories for graduation, which is, of course, the whole point. You'll have to excuse me because I am going to wax a little... I don't want to say prophetic. I'm looking for the other word that I had. Damn it. I can't remember. But anyway, I am going to say a couple of things about that here in just a minute. But first, let's get this kicked off. Tonight, I am drinking Knob Creek 9 Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey in the We the People Lucky Shot USA rocks glass, or old fashioned, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's got a bunch of different names, but here we go. It's always good stuff, and probably by the end of the program, you'll hear my voice will actually get a little better because of the whiskey. Anyway, all right, so let's kick this off with Definitely Not Karen bringing us the Pledge of Allegiance. So do me a favor. If you are of mine, please stand. Remove your hats if you're wearing one, like me. And put your hand over your heart and join in with Definitely Not Karen from Rumble in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, I thank you, Definitely Not Karen, and all the Whiskey Warrior P1s for submitting their versions of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to submit your version of the Pledge of Allegiance, please do so by recording yourself and then sending the audio of it and over to my email address of fans, FANS at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS at AmericanPerspective.online. And we will go off. And yes, Becky, I actually have something about that a little bit later on in the program. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to tonight's segment, fan favorite segment, on this day in American history. And of course, when we have an On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all sorts of factoids about this fabulous and fantastic country that we call home. And for tonight, we are going to be reading or talking about, or hearing about, I should say, from punch cards to microchips. On June 8th, 1887, a former Census Bureau employee named Herman Hollerith filed a patent for a novel sorting device he had devised as part of a apparatus for compiling statistics. His name is not as famous as it used to be, but Hollerith was one in a string of American inventors who ushered in the computer age. His machine used punch cards, cards with rows of holes representing information, to quickly tabulate statistics from millions of pieces of data. Before Hollerith's time, it took the Census Bureau 8 years to sort through information collected in its once-a-decade census. Hollerith's system allowed workers to tally the 1890 population in just 6 weeks and publish refined data in a mere 2 years. The apparatus works as unerringly as the mills of the gods, but beats them hollow as to speed, one expert marveled. Hollerith's tabulating machine company later merged with 2 other companies to form the corporation known today as International Business Machines, called IBM. In June 1951, the world's first commercial computer was put into service at the Census Bureau. The UNIVAC 1, which stood for Universal Automatic Computer 1, was built by the Eckert Mauchly Computer Corporation. The next year, another UNIVAC machine astounded TV viewers when it accurately predicted that Dwight D. Eisenhower would win the 1952 presidential election. In June 1977, Apple Computer Inc. began selling its Apple II, the first widely successful personal computer. Apple was the brainchild of Stephen Wozniak and his friend, Steve Jobs, who sold his Volkswagen minibus to help fund the company, started in his parents' garage. By the early 1980s, microchips in the first generation of personal computers could perform close to 5 million operations per second, compared to the room-size UNIVAC's 1,900. And that is today's On This Day in American History. You know, really quickly about that, and only because I happen to be in the computerized industry, our phones that we carry around every day have more computing power than pretty much all of the systems on all of the Apollo ships that were used, and ironically, the computers used in order to set up space travel. They also have more computing power in the palm of our hands today than what would fill an entire floor when you're dealing with computers that have tubes and those kinds of things. It's just amazing. It's amazing how far we have come in such a small period of time. I mean, just talking about age and things. I was born long before, and not too long before, but long before the very first video game came out, which was Pong. And it was, on the Atari. I remember when the Atari was first sold. In fact, our neighbors had the first Atari in our neighborhood. And it was just amazing to all of us kids, of course. And look how far we've come in just that short period of time. And yes, I know I'm taking a hit because a lot of my Whiskey Warrior P1s out there are older than I am. Not saying that's a bad thing. Experience and wisdom comes with age, which is something that is amazing to me that these young kids of today don't really know that as of yet. So here's the thing. Yesterday, I was sitting out. We had the graduation ceremony was outside. Beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest. Sunny, 70s. Couldn't get much better. Beautiful blue sky. So they set it up in the football stadium. And the reason being is because of the fact that, obviously they wanted to get as many parents, family, friends, etc. to come into the stadium to celebrate the graduates and their accomplishment. Now, back when I was in school, we only had one valedictorian. In this particular case, we had I think 10 or 11. Why they call them all valedictorians, I don't know. You would think you would have one valedictorian and the rest of them could be called salutatorians. But whatever. Seems to be the way of the world today. And they all got up and they were given like a 3-minute speech. And the speeches ran the gamut of being, long lists of thank yous to all of the people that helped get the student across the finish line, to some of the heartfelt ones, to even one that was sort of whimsical in nature, talking about the movie Cars. And it was interesting, I'll say. Not that I was necessarily looking for these youngsters standing up first time on stage in front of what very well could be, 1,000 people and giving a speech. Being put in that position, you expect a certain amount of nervousness, of course. But the one thing that struck me as I was sitting there, and keep in mind, this is my second child and my last. I only have 2. But my first child, unfortunately, graduated in 2020 during COVID. And so as such, he did not get the pomp and circumstance. In fact, his graduation consisted of walking across the his closest elementary school gym floor to nobody, because, obviously you couldn't be within 6 feet of one another, which was a bunch of bullshit, but I won't go down that path just yet. And he ended up, waving to nobody, congratulating nobody, getting a handshake from nobody, and picking up his diploma box, because of course they don't give you the diploma right away, and walking out. And all of this was videotaped. We were allowed to stand on the outside of the gym and take photos of him walking across. And so this was a first experience for me, having one of my children actually graduate in the whole pomp and circumstance. The one theme that did come through in a lot of the speeches, of course, was a look to the past as well as a look to the future. And that got me thinking about things like a lot of firsts. As a parent, you have, your first child, you have your first steps, you have your first word, you have your first day of school, you have your first, time that they argue with you, you have the first time that they get behind the wheel after getting their license. And then, of course, you have the first time that they leave, which is at graduation. And I was also struck and thought about, what are we leaving to these folks? Now, this is going to sound a little down in the dumpish, but it's reality, which I thrive in a lot of places, is reality. What are we leaving these kids? We're leaving them a world where war could happen, at any time due to the geriatric oatmeal brains in the White House. We're leaving them with the idea that they can choose what gender they are, that they can even choose not to be a proper species. We're leaving them with the idea that they, just because they exist, they deserve something. We're leaving them with a world in which their chances of having what would be considered the American dream is being affected by the economic choices of this administration. And yet these same kids also have not learned about the great America that we live in, the beacon of freedom for the entire world to see. They don't seem to understand that if they do not do, as Ronald Reagan said, protect freedom every single generation, that it's going to be gone forever, and you will never know what it used to be. The responsibility of this comes to the feet of those of us who are older, wiser, and know better. We also, at the same time, had demonstrations and celebrations of the greatest generation and what they did 80 years ago, which was nearly impossible. A nearly impossible task that they took on, not only willingly, but many lost their lives doing so. And so I ask myself every single time that I was sitting there thinking about this entire situation is, what is it that we are leaving to the next generation? I myself would like to leave a world and a country that is better than what it was when I came in. And I came in right before the Reagan years, which could explain why I am so enamored with Ronald Reagan. But folks, this election coming up in November, we have got to rally the troops. We've got to leave a world that is better than what we were given. And unfortunately, we've allowed, even myself, because I've been one of those types of people who sat back on the sidelines and said, you know what, just leave me alone. And I'm happy. We can't do that anymore. We cannot do that anymore. We have to stand up, not only for ourselves, but also for our posterity, our future, our children, and their future, and our grandchildren's children. We have to elect constitutional conservatives whenever possible, but we have to defeat this scourge that is the Democrat Marxist Party. And we need to bring Trump, who will be the tip of the spear in the return of decency and a semblance of order to the America that we grew up in. This is a fight that we cannot afford to lose. We cannot afford to lose this. I saw a lot of hope last night. I saw a lot of excitement, a lot of exuberance, a lot of wonderful, wonderful kids whom I would love to pass on the next generation. What I did not see was a sense of foreboding and a failure. But we will have it if we do not give them the opportunity to take what we were given a long time ago and have been nurturing ever since. because sooner or later we will pass. In this world, well, if we do not help them to help themselves, to protect this world and the liberty that we have and the freedom that we have, it will vanish from the face of the earth and it won't come back. All right, toward that end is tonight's sponsor. Oops. Yeah, the Institute on the Constitution. So the Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, great graduation gift, by the way, you can go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this out. It is 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapping around tear-resistant, water-resistant pages, as well as stitched binding going all the way through. None of that crap glue for this thing. This is nicely made. In fact, it's so nicely made that they have a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship defects where you can return it to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has ensured the content inside can get you to pass your civics badge in Scouts. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get some thecte rounded corners, as my rumblers all keep reminding me. And go and pick yours up today. Also, while you are there, please make sure you check out the IOTC and the rest of their course material and information. And I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate. Okay, so let's talk about some politics and current events that are going on. So one thing that happened while I was out, which I found sort of not necessarily shocking, I guess, but if it is true, because again, keep in mind, we haven't had any verification as of yet. But if this is true, this is another nail in the coffin of that stupid, moronic Trump New York City verdict. Let me show you what I am talking about here as soon as I can get it up here. Where is it? Gotta find it. Wait. Oh, here, it's right here. There we go. Okay. So Judge Mershon, which I thought this was kind of interesting, to be honest with you, because this wouldn't be the pattern for this guy. But apparently, Judge Mershon let both parties in the Trump New York City NDA payment trial know that there was someone had posted on the New York court system's social media page, so this was on Facebook, before the verdict, and that's the key, before the verdict that, quote, my cousin is a juror and says Trump is getting convicted. So here's the problem with this, okay? And by the way, this comes from the Daily Signal, although I've seen it in a couple of other things. But one of the key things about these trials, any trial, by the way, is the fact that the jurors are not supposed to talk to anyone outside, not even amongst themselves, until they are given the directions by the judge and are allowed to go and deliberate. They're not supposed to talk about it. In fact, when you get sequestered for a jury trial, you are not supposed to even watch the news about it. You are on your word supposed to keep yourself individually, at least until like I said, until the judge hands it over to the jury and gives you the jury instructions. Well, assuming that this is true. So assuming that this is true, what you end up with is a potential problem with the verdict, because now you have a jury misconduct and some issues with the actual outcome of the trial. Now, this comment raises immediate concerns and, of course, should raise alarm bells about all of this. And so, yeah, it's he also, Judge Mershon, just as a part of the directions before they began their deliberations, he admonished the jury and said, quote, during your deliberations, you must discuss the case only among yourselves. You must not discuss the case with anyone else, including a court officer, or permit anyone other than a fellow juror to discuss the case in your presence. And yet, here we have potential evidence, and I keep saying potential and allegedly, and, you know, if it's true, because we haven't had confirmation on any of this. But if this occurred, we have a potential problem with it. Now, if this comment turns out to be true, and at least one juror did not follow the instructions, the potential consequence is that the jury's verdict could be thrown out. First, an investigation into the comment is likely to take place to find out who made the comment and if that person is in fact related to the juror. The judge will likely hold a hearing allowing the defense and prosecution to present arguments about how this investigation should proceed. Given the unprecedented nature of this prosecution and the serious consequences that will follow from it, everyone should want an expeditious resolution. Yes, we should. Second, if the comment is found to have been made by a real person who is really related to a juror, that's where things really get interesting. Because then the judge will likely hold further hearings and question the juror under oath about the conduct. Depending on what the conduct is consisted of, that jury or that juror himself or herself could find themselves subjected to criminal liability, even though that's going to be difficult to prove, according to the article here. But the point is that they violated, regardless of what happens, they violated their oath. Now, what does it mean in terms of the verdict? Well, there is a recent precedent from New York's highest court, I should say, that could call for the verdict against Trump to be set aside. In 2019, a case called People versus Newlander, a unanimous New York Court of Appeals upheld the setting aside of a murder conviction where a particular juror had texted extensively about the case during the trial and then, of course, lied about it. Now, the other key piece out of all of this is that the judge apparently didn't sequester the jury, like I was saying in the beginning. And whenever you sequester the jury, that might have prevented them from having communications with others outside the trial. So if this particular set of problems turns out to be true, then the possibility of an appeal, if things don't go out the way that they think, you could end up with a bit of a problem. So here, I just got to bring this up. I've got to ask this question. Why does it seem like the trials against Trump are all freaking so badly mishandled and so badly set up here? Why do they even bother with these things? Why did they, seriously, this is, and honestly, a lot of people have been like very, very critical of Juan Merchan. In fact, if any of this is actually found to be true, he could actually face some serious issues as well, not only legal issues, but career-wise. So I'm almost wondering if some of this stuff, like the reason why he said that this was a potential problem, is that it would take the pressure off of him. And I see my chatters are starting to come to the same conclusion, because I have what is essentially the smartest audience in the entire podcasting space. But this could present some serious problems for him, and also at the same time could also get him off the hook of stuff. Oh, so we're not done with this thing yet. It's not even close. The left thought it was a done deal, and the judge was going to, don't get me wrong, this investigation, if it takes long enough, could maybe, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a New York lawyer, so I don't know for sure, but I imagine that because this puts into question the actual jury verdict, that this might hold up the sentencing that was scheduled for July 11th. And so we may not actually get the sentencing like the left has been desiring. So this is going to be kind of interesting. Oh boy. Yeah, like I said, this is the year. This is the year. Now, one thing that has definitely come out, and I don't know, I think I spoke about it if I remember correctly. Sorry, a little sleep deprived brain fog here, but talking about the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop got submitted in Hunter's gun charge trial. And because of that, the social media has just gone nuts. In fact, on my X account, I simply because somebody had made a comment about how the laptop wasn't real, and she's like some left-wing propagandist, media person. And she puts out, no, it was, it's Russian information, blah, blah, blah. So I just responded, well, now that it's been submitted as evidence, it actually is real. And you lied, and you're still lying. And so anyway, I just want to say for all of you leftists that are out there who are still trying to say that this laptop is not real, or that the data is not real, and that all of this stuff is lying, you are clear idiots, because it is true. The laptop is real. The information contained on it, for the most part, is real. The FBI actually had it before Rudy Giuliani even obtained a copy of it. It was handed over by the shop owner, or attempted to hand over, at least, to the FBI very early on in April, if I recall, sometime in the end of April. And so, yeah, this is just, it's just horrible. But here's five takes, and this is compiled by Fox News. But here's 5 takes on the Hunter Biden laptop that have aged completely poorly. First one being the fact that Politico reporting on a letter from Intel officials who claim the laptop was Russian disinformation. It's not. Because, yeah, it was published. The New York Post published the story on October 14th. It was quickly taken down, by the way, from the media outlets, and Facebook took it down, X took it down prior to Elon, so on and so forth. The narrator went quickly, and they kept talking about how it was Russian disinformation because of an open letter penned by 51 former intelligence officials who all claimed that the laptop had the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation operation, which, by the way, some of those, not all, but some of those former intelligence officials have come out since and have been like, well, yeah, it looked like it, but yeah, we didn't really know, so we just sort of signed it, So the letter itself was first reported and circulated by Politico, which is bullshitico, according to Dan Bongino, and is a left-wing rag outlet. Is the place to go if you want to see what the left is planning on doing today, is their political playbook. But anyway, Twitter uses big tech might to block the Hunter Biden story and punish the New York Post. So that was, Twitter did it. Well, Facebook followed up and everything else. And of course, again, this is pre-Elon Musk, but obviously, and I still, by the way, I still believe that the suppression of this particular story was the biggest single influence on the 2020 election, bar none, because mathematically speaking, if you look at the 16% of individuals who have since claimed in polls that knowing that that laptop information was real and correct, it would have changed their vote in the 2020 election, and Joe Biden only won by 4%, which basically means that the 16%, if extrapolated properly, was 4 times what would be needed in order to give Donald Trump a victory in 2020. Yeah, this is the biggest scandal, potentially even bigger than Watergate, which I wrote a social media post and piece on that. 60 Minutes, of course, you remember that famous interview with Leslie Stahl, who was, Sir! I scared my cat. Claiming when Donald Trump claimed that the laptop was real, same thing, where he was saying that it was verified. Leslie Stahl claimed that no, there was no way to conclude that the laptop or its contents were real. Well, guess what, lady? You're obviously not a journalist. You're a propagandist, which isn't really surprising. 60 Minutes is turned into a propagandist outlet, just like the rest of our mainstream media. NPR calls the laptop story a distraction and says it doesn't want to waste readers' time. So NPR didn't even bother posting a story about it because, as far as they were concerned, they didn't want to waste their readers' time. Well, sorry, NPR, but everything you put out wastes your readers' time. Because, again, you're a propagandist outlet. And of course, we have good old Joe dismissing his son Hunter Biden's laptop during the debate against Trump, which he kept saying the 51 intelligence officials, they said a laptop is on the butterflies. Sorry, bad impression. But anyway, obviously that was a bit of a problem. So yeah. 2024, the year of the truth. I think we should call that. I think we should start calling 2024 the year of the truth. We're getting the truth about the Hunter Biden laptop. We're getting the truth about COVID. We're getting the truth about Fauci and his botched handling of the pandemic. And the left keeps trying to blame Trump for all of this. And so far, we haven't had any connections to any of this, that Trump was basically following Fauci because in his estimation, and at the time, he was told that Fauci was the way to go. Fauci was the smart doctor who handled the AIDS epidemic and so on and so forth. and was somebody to be listened to. And now we find out that Fauci and his buddies and everything else, they all gained money off of all of it. Like Dan Bongino says, follow the money. Follow the money. All right. So we have some new numbers that have come out with regards to the jobs report. So the other thing that seems to be a hot topic in the social media phase is the fact that the new jobs report came out and it supposedly added something like 270,000 jobs or something like that. And it was, this wonderful thing. Never mind the fact that all of the jobs reports and all of these wonderful numbers that Biden keeps posting have actually been revised downward every single time. Just about, I'm sorry. There was like maybe one or two that they didn't, but considering the fact that Biden's been in for 3.5 years, it could be, statistically speaking, every single time. But a new report came out that shows that Joe Biden, all of the jobs that he's been putting out, all of those jobs, for the most part, have gone to migrants, not Americans. Americans are dropping out of the workforce. So he's opening up, and not to mention the fact that these jobs that he keeps touting, they're all part-time jobs. They're not full-time jobs. I've talked about that before. They're part-time jobs with like no benefits or anything else, and yet they're considering them, oh yeah, they're brand new jobs, so we're considering them as part of the jobs report. And the majority of those, by the way, are going to migrants. They're going to the migrants. Here is a graph that was posted on Real E.J. Anton's X account, where he's taken the source of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The chart was also put together by Real E.G. Anthony. Again, he put the chart together. And he's got this chart here, and he shows the difference between native-born employment in the thousands, and that's in orange, versus the foreign-born employment in the thousands. Neither one of them seasonally adjusted, but you can take a notice. You can look how there is a huge difference between the two graphs. I mean, this is visually stunning in terms of taking a look. The orange line that's shown here at the bottom hasn't even kept up with the anticipated or estimated line, which is in the dash. Those dash lines are trend lines, and the trend before COVID was going along a pretty well parallel, a pretty good straight path. And when you extend that trend line out past the COVID dip, you start to see the big difference that while the immigration or the immigrants' foreign-born employment has come back to that trend line, the native-born employment has not. And this is a problem. This is why Joe Biden's numbers are extremely questionable at best. Now, what's funny about this whole thing about the jobs report is that it was juxtaposed by the fact that unemployment has risen for the third straight month. And we've now hit 4% unemployment for the first time since January of 2022. And that's despite the fact that the jobs report was indicating that we gained 272,000 jobs in the month of May. So all of these economic indicators, by the way, are starting to lean toward what is considered economic stagnation. We have high inflation, high interest rates. We have low wages. In this case, we're actually losing money in wages because wages are not keeping up with inflation. And we now have a stagnant unemployment which is rising. And all of this wraps up into a nice, pretty bow for what's considered stagflation, which the largest, most recent stagflation cycle was back in the 1970s, right before Reagan, and caused a big shift in it. Well, Joe Biden has also continued his pandering, but not to the American voter like he usually does, although that is a big part of Joe Biden's campaign. But now he's showing us how bad he is on foreign policy. In this piece from Town Hall, Joe Biden apologizes to Zelensky for not cutting a check to Ukraine soon enough for his liking. So Joe Biden is basically taking our money, our tax dollars, and sending them off to Ukraine. But apparently we're not cutting the check fast enough for him. We can't afford to keep this guy in the White House any longer. I'm telling you, this guy is just a disaster. He's an absolute disaster. So Joe Biden apparently on Friday was talking to Zelensky, but first time he publicly apologized as he asked for the U.S. to support Ukraine, as though Ukraine was like it was during World War II. Again, likening Ukraine and the Ukraine war with Russia as a world war event. Well, it's also interesting, too, that at the same time that he's asking for apologies for this, he's also telling Ukraine that they can't use U.S.-made weapons against Russia in their advances to attack places like Moscow over in Russia. So once again, Joe Biden has his carrot and his attempt at stick approach. Midwest Gunner over on Rumble also pointed out this, saying that Zelensky actually suspended presidential elections and has declared martial law in Ukraine. In his term apparently ended in May, and so now he is not even technically the legit president of yeah. So anyway, this is just a train wreck of an administration. Every time you turn around, he's doing something that is just absolutely sickening. So in this piece here from Town Hall, back to it, Biden assured Ukrainians we're still in completely and thoroughly. He also essentially, figuratively speaking, got down on his hands and knees and was kissing Zelensky's feet by saying that he apologized for not knowing if there would be any more money that would arrive on Zelensky's doorstep as Republicans in Congress held up a $61 billion, yes, that's with the B, military aid package for Ukraine for a total of 6 months. They halted passing the package because they argued that any U.S. funds should go towards securing America's own borders before giving it to the foreign leader, which is when Biden assured Ukrainians that we, meaning him, still in completely and thoroughly. And the United States has become the biggest supplier for wartime support to Ukraine since Russia invaded the country over 2 years ago. In total, the U.S. has allocated $113.4 billion in emergency funding. Zelensky stressed that the war with Russia was far from over, pleading with Americans to keep the Ukrainian flag bumper stickers stuck to the back of their cars and the "We Support Ukraine" signs on their front lawns, as he asked U.S. citizens to support the billions of taxpayer dollars going to him Does anybody find it odd that this guy used to be like a television star who like shook his stomach and other parts on stage? I'm not going to do that again. That's just ridiculous. But anyway, anybody else find that odd? I know I find it odd. I find it really odd that Joe Biden is invested in this. Well, shifting over to another war, conflict, armed conflict, whatever you want to call it, in the region, that whole eastern continent region, Israel has continued its operations, even though Biden keeps trying to tell them to stop. Netanyahu and the Knesset and the cabinet that's there, they keep flipping off Biden, saying we're not stopping, which they shouldn't. But apparently they went through and actually rescued some hostages here in the last couple of days. And this is some really big news, by the way, that 4 hostages were rescued from a quote-unquote refugee camp. And I put those in quotes to go along with the Red State article that I'm bringing this from, but also refugee camps are consistently finding out to be terrorist strongholds. But apparently it came from Nusrat, and the operation was conducted jointly with the IDF, the ISA, which is Israel's CIA, by the way, and the Israeli police forces. The rescued hostages were 3 men and 1 woman. All were taken during the Nova Music Festival on October 7th. They've got their names here: Noah Agramani, Amog Mir Jan, Andrei Kolzov, and Shilomi Ziv. Now, for those that don't know, but Noah Argamani was actually one of the featured people in those horrific attacks that happened on October 7th and were published by the Hamas invaders. If you want to take a look at it, you can see, but there's an image that I'm showing you on the screen right now from Elon Levy, who posts the photo of Noah Argamani in that video where she was taken originally on October 7th. And apparently she was found and went ahead, and there's a video too of her getting reunited with her father after spending 250 days. 250 days in captivity in the Gaza Strip. Reportedly, all of the rescued hostages were evacuated from a Gaza beach via helicopter, and then they finally headed home. Yeah, this is good news. This is really good news. And also, the other thing, too, is that this also makes us hold out hope for those 5 Americans or 4 Americans that are still missing, that are still part of the hostages, that Joe Biden doesn't seem to give a flying you-know-what about, who seems to say, hey, we should leave Hamas in place, even though they took American people. I'm sorry, but if I was the president, there would be no stopping the U.S. forces in going in and getting our people back. I would be right next to Israel. I'd be like, hey, IDF forces, we're going to be right there with you. And we're going to make sure we're going to wipe this through. And we're going to get those people back. But instead, the Biden administration, who of course doesn't care about Americans, only cares about himself and power, has a relentless effort to force Israel into a ceasefire that would remove the IDF from Gaza. Basically, the idea here is, without any kind of punishment to Hamas, put everything back to the way it was on October 6th. So essentially, and by the way, pay for us as Americans and our American tax dollars to go in and rebuild the Gaza Strip. Leave Hamas in charge, rebuild the Gaza Strip, go back to October 6th with the idea that, Hamas mistakenly can never do this again, which is a bunch of horsepucky. They're going to. Yeah. This guy has literally no idea how to handle these people in Gaza Strip and any place else in the world. I mean, look at what he did in Afghanistan, backing out. That was the catalyst that started all of this shit. Honestly, it was a complete catalyst that started all of this shit. Because he demonstrated to the world that he was weak, that he was stupid, that he was a horrible person when it came to foreign policy. He didn't know what the hell he was doing at all. And as you know, he has been wrong on every single foreign policy for 50 years, his entire career in any sort of office, whether it was a Senate, VP, now as president. He has no idea what he's doing. And it's hurting not only America, but it's hurting the world. All right, so we're going to shift gears here after this break. But I got to tell you about this wonderful company, patriotic company, veteran-owned company. Steve, the guy that owns it, I can't remember his last name right off the top of my head, but Steve, the guy that owns it, is a veteran. Proud veteran, like most of us are. He founded this company called The Flag Shirt, and it's called, the website where you need to go look is theflagshirt.com. There's still some time. They are still running their Flag Day sale. I wear their shirts. I wear them here on the program. So these fantastic patriotic, brightly colored patriotic shirts that I wear, these all come from theflagshirt.com. But they're running their Flag Day sale, up until Flag Day. And for that sale, you can get up to 50% off select patriotic styles. Go to theflagshirt.com and go shop now. They also have their Independence Day outfits, I should say. They've got several that are selected specially for Independence Day. They've got men's, women's. They've got stuff made in the USA as well as elsewhere. All patriotic apparel, just some fantastic stuff. Shirts, socks for the men. We've got belts. Men and women have hats. They have other things like key rings as well, key fobs. Great stuff. Go check them out at theflagshirt.com. And here, if you don't want to take them up on their $75 free shipping option, you can go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online. And get yourself a coupon code there that can be applied for $5 off your order at theflagshirt.com. Once again, go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. Get your promo code that you enter in at checkout. When you go to theflagshirt.com and grab something there, you can get $5 off that order on the American Perspective show and theflagshirt.com. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. So, as you know, because I've talked about it, pretty much every political pundit has been talking about it, and especially on the left. They keep attacking people, patriotic Americans on the Supreme Court, like Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, who are the two most constitutionalist judges on the bench right now for the Supreme Court. But they keep attacking them for all of these supposed ethics violations when it comes to things like taking gifts, They call them bribes. Getting paid all this money for like book deals and lavish vacations and so on and so forth. But the part that the left keeps skipping over is the fact that although they keep targeting Thomas in particular about this and Samuel Alito, there's 7 other justices on this court that are all doing the same freaking thing. Especially one of their darlings that they have. And of course, by that, I mean, even RBG had some questionable ethics violations in her past too. I've shown you the list that was compiled by that one nonprofit that's trying to get the court to have an ethics rules and setup and all that kind of stuff. But their newest darling that they have is here. Ketanji Brown Jackson reportedly has hauled in $1.5 million in just one single year. And yet the media is freaking out over Clarence Thomas's $100,000 that he has. This comes from the National Pulse. Left-wing activists and Democrats seeking to undermine the legitimacy of the U.S. Supreme Court have repeatedly attacked Justice Clarence Thomas over allegations that he received $4 million in gifts over the past 33 years on the bench. However, these activists, of course, are ignoring the lucrative secret incomes being raked in by the more liberal wing of the court, including its newest member, Ketanji Brown Jackson. Which, by the way, she's not a justice, she's an activist. But anyway. So it was revealed in some recent financial disclosures that the U.S. Supreme Court justices reported a collective $1.5 million in book income last year. Ketanji Brown Jackson was the highest earner from the book advances, receiving $893,750 for her forthcoming memoir. That marks a nearly $1 million earning in a single year compared to Justice Thomas, who has been under unrelenting pressure for $4 million over a period of 33 years. Now, if you amortize that, of course, across the 33 years, you're looking at just over $100,000 per year. Yeah. Folks, if the left really wants to, the only reason why they're attacking the court right now is because of the fact that the Supreme Court is leaning in the conservative direction in a lot of cases, especially the 2 Trump cases that are expected to have opinions out sometime this month, probably toward the end of it. But the reason why they keep attacking these people is because of the fact they seem to, especially the members of Congress, they seem to think that they can exert some sort of power over the justices, totally ignoring the Constitution and the fact that we have essentially a 3-party split of the power of the federal government, where neither one of the 3 is more powerful than the other. Although it has been argued that the president and the legislative bodies are the 2 most powerful pieces, with the Supreme Court being more of a third party, not quite so powerful branch. But keep in mind, they only, meaning the left, they only argue about this when it suits them. Otherwise, they don't really care. For an example, they don't give a shit that Sotomayor did not recuse herself on a case that directly involved her publisher, which, by the way, gave her a $3 million advance on a book. So, yeah. Again, if you're going to do it for one, do it for all. I'm sitting here saying you can't do it at all, period. But to sit here and just attack Justice and Alito for supposed ethics violations and ignoring the rest of them is just simple Marxist, leftist, Democrat bullshit tactics. That's what they do. And by the way, this is furthering that, where each one of the justices reported hundreds of thousands in book deals. It's not just one, it's all of them. Several of them, in fact, reported hundreds of thousands in book payments, according to the disclosure forms that were made public yesterday. Ketanji Brown Jackson received concert tickets from Beyonce. Yeah, okay. Apparently, she was provided 4 concert tickets worth a total of $3,711.84. It's among 3 gifts that she received in 2023, according to the disclosure, which also revealed that she had received $12,500 worth of artwork. Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Sotomayor also reported incomes from books that they have published or will publish. That's the key, is the will publish. Kavanaugh reported being paid $340,000 by Regenery Publishing, while the court confirmed Friday evening that the justice is writing a legal memoir. Gorsuch and Sotomayor reported royalty incomes of $250,000 and nearly $90,000, respectively. Yeah. At the same time, Thomas went ahead and amended his disclosure dated March 15th and made public also on Friday, which showed that Clarence Thomas made one trip on July 12th to Bali, Indonesia. That's July 12th, 2019. The other trip was from July 18th to July 21st in 2019 and in Monte Rio, California. A lawyer who spoke for Justice Thomas has said in 2023 that critics were wrong when they asserted the justice had failed to report all the gifts he received on his disclosures. Justice Thomas reported only one gift for 2023. He said he received 2 photo albums worth roughly around $2,000. Alito, of course, was the only justice whose report was not available on Friday after he received an extension for up to 90 days, which he typically does. He's been under scrutiny, of course, for the flags flying outside of his house. But anyway, yeah. If you're going to go after one, I mean, I don't care. I'll be honest with you. I don't really care. I mean, in positions of power, you kind of have to have ethics codes. You have to have codes of ethics. You have to have, things that you're planning on following and so on and so forth. And you should abstain from taking gifts and things like that in those positions. But it's not saying that it's unheard of, and especially if the gift cannot be necessarily tied directly to anything that you, as in your position, did or said that might have garnered any type of benefit, either for yourself or for the person who is giving you the gift, especially the person giving you the gift in that kind of position. But anyway, it also seems like gifting and grifting is not reserved for people in really high-powered positions. Because here in the state of Arizona, which, by the way, for those of you that don't know, Governor Katie Hobbs, this is her first term. She was just elected. And check this out. According to this town hall report, she is now under investigation. The state attorney general announced that its criminal division will look into whether the governor's office, Arizona's Department of Child Safety, and a group home service were involved in some sort of a corrupt pay-to-play operation. Some contributions from the group home company, which is identified as Sunshine Residential Homes, have raised the eyebrows of authorities and Arizona Republicans in the legislature. Now, this is coming to you via Axios. The Arizona Attorney General's office will investigate what a state senator described as a pay-to-play scheme involving Governor Katie Hobbs, the Department of Child Safety, and a group home company that received a substantial rate increase. This was originally reported in the Arizona Republic on Wednesday that Sunshine Residential Homes received a large rate hike from the Department of Child Safety, DCS, after making six-figure contributions to Hobbs' inauguration fund and the Arizona Democrat Party. See, this is how it all works, folks. These people, they make donations in return for favors. Wait a minute. Big donations in return for favors? Kind of sounds like Biden's influence peddling operation, doesn't it? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not necessarily blaming the Democrats for this because I'm sure the Republicans are kind of in the same boat at times. We've certainly had our share of Republicans accused of this exact same thing. But the thing about it is that now the Democrats are starting to get sloppy because they've been allowed to do it for so long, and now they're getting caught. Again, you cannot trust politics and the political people who are part of the machine. You cannot trust them. They are simply tools. Do not put any type of personal, emotional value toward any of these individuals. They are there for a purpose, and that is to advance a particular position, policy, agenda, whatever you want to call it. That's what they're there for. They're not there for us to sit here and fawn over. And that, believe it or not, that actually even includes Trump, although Trump is not a politician by any sense of the word. But still, the point is that these folks are to be used in order to advance an American agenda, an America First agenda. So don't get emotionally involved in the person. Get emotionally involved in the policies. Just part of the reason why I keep telling people that Trump may be a despicable human being in his private life, but that's not why I'm voting for the man. I'm voting for the man because he is the only candidate out of the field that we have in front of us that has what would be considered an America First policy, an America First agenda to get this republic back on track. That's his purpose. I don't have any vested interest into whether or not he stooped Stormy Daniels. I don't have any vested interest in whether or not he stooped that other lady. I don't have any vested interest in the fact in any of the information dealing with his personal life. You know, if he cheats on his wife, there's nothing I can do about it. That's a personal issue, not a political one. And I call out again, JFK was a heavily reported womanizer, sleeping with Marilyn Monroe and several others, even when he was in the White House. That's not the purpose of these folks. Do I want them to be more of a stand-up person and more of a hero, an ethical person? Yes. I would love for that to happen, but that's not the world that we live in. That's not the world that we live in. And yes, Becky, out in Australia land, on Facebook says he is not part of the establishment, which is exactly the point as to why he is such an effective, in an effective position. All right, shifting gears here for a moment, but before I do, let me get one last promotion in. Let me tell you about True Grit Roots Network. TGRN Blues is our 24/7, 365 blues only channel, and it supports independent artists that create the blues sound and have been both the older and more established artists, as well as new and up-and-coming artists. You can check us out at tgrn.net. You can listen right through your browser, or you can download our app. There's links there to both the Android as well as the the Apple iOS store. You can also find us if you already have the Live 365 app. You can find us in the Live 365 digital catalog or catalog of digital radio stations. You can also find us in iHeart as well as Odyssey on the Odyssey app, AUDACY. Go and check us out, tgrn.net with TGRN Blues, based out of Austin, Texas. And we, of course, thank you for your support. All right. Well, you know as well as I do that when CNN starts saying that stuff looks bad, it looks bad. Okay. CNN apparently had this panel on, and I'm trying to think of who this person is. What is her name? Boy, I can't even think of her name. But anyway, they had a panel of legal experts, including a former judge. This comes from the Hot Air magazine. The title reads, CNN analyst, let's face it, Fannie's case is dead. Which, yeah, it should be. So the appellate court in Georgia, I already told you guys about this, agreed to hear the defense objection to the ruling that denied their disqualification motion against Willis. But what happened, of course, is that the appellate court also stayed any forward motion on the case. Now, there is a bit of a caveat to that, but makes, again, for a very difficult time if Judge McAfee decides to move forward with certain parts of the case, because the Georgia appellate court only upheld or has only put in the stay order on certain parts of the RICO case. So there is another piece that could move forward that doesn't involve the defendants, because not all of the defendants, by the way, jumped on the bandwagon with this motion to appeal against Fannie's disqualification hearing. And so because of that, there is a portion that might be able to move forward, although I don't think it's going to do that, because it's going to be very difficult to break this all apart. Because, again, Fannie put it all together, or Fannie, however you pronounce her freaking name, put it all together under one roof. And so it's really a difficult time to try and break that back up once it's already been started. Now, the appellate court scheduled its hearing to weigh in on this whole thing. And then after they scheduled that hearing, the appeals court then said the case will be on hold until a panel of judges rules on whether Fannie Willis should be disqualified. And a decision, and this is the key, is a decision is expected by March of 2025, although it could potentially rule sooner than that. But CNN legal analyst Ellie Honing observed yesterday that none of that really matters. The appellate court's intervention signals the end of the case, at least in practical terms. There's now zero chance that the Georgia case will happen this year, and may also almost certainly not next year either. He said, it's over. Let's be realistic. It's not happening before the 2024 election. It's not happening in 2024. Maybe it's not happening at all. Now, look, the appeals court, we can never predict what they're going to do, but we know some things we know. But there's some things that we know for sure. Number one, they didn't have to take the case on the appeal, but they chose to, which, of course, in my mind, stepping out of the conversation for a second, in my mind indicates that they think there's something there. Secondly, they didn't have to pause the district court. They could have allowed the case to continue. He continues here saying, in fact, the trial court judge, when issuing his ruling, allowed Donald Trump and the others to ask the appeals court to take the case. That he was talking about Judge McAfee there. The trial court judge, McAfee, specified, while you are all doing that, I am going to continue to hold proceedings. And now today, just a couple hours ago, because obviously this interview was a couple days ago, the appeals court said, no, pause that too. So that tells me they are taking this appeal very seriously. And if Trump and the defendants prevail in this appeal, the case is essentially toast. Yeah. So, former federal judge Shira Scheindlin also agreed and said that this would not have gone to trial before the election anyway, even without the stay, because, as she put it, there was a lot of nuances to this entire case. And there's a lot of motions, a lot of pretrial stuff that has to get handled. And so she was thinking, yeah, it wasn't going to happen anyway. She also said that she isn't surprised that the appellate court took up the appeal, nor that they paused the case indefinitely. So here we have another case that's stalling as well. All right, last one for tonight. This one impacts and shows you that the deep state and the tech industries are colluding again to go after conservatives. Here in the post-millennial, Google removes PragerU app from the Play Store for hate speech. Now, PragerU, for those of you that don't know, is a right-wing organization which puts out several conservative videos, discussions, opinion pieces, etc., with this whole thing, and on various topics. It was formed by Dennis Prager and has many notable folks on the conservative movement, including one of my favorites, Carol Swain, who is a staunch advocate and history teacher, I think, instructor at one of the universities. I think might be the University of North Carolina. But anyway, she puts out a video that PragerU has that talks about the whole Southern strategy and the debunked myth that the parties actually switched in the South, meaning that the Democrat, and this is what the Democrats always seem to think and believe when it comes to things like racism, believing that the Republicans are the racists because they believe in the fact that there was this Southern strategy and that the two parties switched their ideological leanings just magically. And she goes through and debunks it. It's about a 15-minute long video, and I personally like it. But anyway, Google has decided to remove their app from the Play Store because of a recently released documentary called Dear Infidels, A Warning to America, which, quote, features firsthand accounts from individuals who have escaped the oppressive grip of radical Islamic rule. So basically, they're just bringing the truth again. Well, Google doesn't seem to like the truth. And so Google got rid of their app, kind of like what they did with Parler at one point. So anyway, as I've repeatedly said and will keep saying, from now until the election, folks, censorship is going to continue. The American public, shows like this are probably going to get hit, and you're going to have to make sure that you follow us on media accounts that are not going to censor the speech of conservative broadcasters, such as myself, which is why, if you haven't already, you should head on over to rumble.com, sign up for an account, find the American Perspective broadcast. I believe I am the only channel out there that is American Perspective on Rumble. Sign up for the account. It's free. And make sure you hit that green follow button on the channel. That'll let you know whenever I go live. Also, If you're already over on Rumble, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button as you exit so that we can get this video, this broadcast, this channel up on the Rumble leaderboard or part of the editor's picks to expand exposure. All right, folks, I will see you on Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Enjoy your Sunday, as I'm sure you all will, and we'll see you again on Monday. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.